The sacrament that was assigned to my group was the sacrament of holy orders. So what we decided to do was to take a trip down to the Sacred Heart Seminary down in Detroit so we could talk to Father Stephen Burr and learn a little more about it. But before we get started, I want to tell you a little more about the sacrament of holy orders. Holy orders is a sacrament by which bishops, priests, and other ministers of the church are ordained and receive the power and grace to their sacred duties. A brief explanation on how the holy orders works is when a young man goes to study for the priesthood. After he has discovered that God has called him to that sacred office, he passes several years in learning what is necessary and fitting himself for his sacred duties. Our first question for Father Stephen Burr is, what is your general knowledge about the sacrament of holy orders?
I would say it's vast. I've been a priest for 14 years now, and I run the undergraduate program for seminarians here at the seminary. So, as meant to become priests, that they are servants of the Lord in His church, that they administer the sacraments, that they care for the poor and serve the people in their area as diocesan priests, and that's just as diocesan priests, and then religious priests serve within the charisms of their order, so they have a certain life of prayer and a certain routine to their life that'd be different from diocesan priests. All right.
Our second question for Father Burr was, what are the steps it takes to become ordained, and how long does it take?
Good. So it takes either 8 or 6 years mostly, so somewhere between that. So as a man comes in after high school, which is possible, he does 4 years of college and then 4 years of graduate school. Or if a man comes in with a degree already and he already went to college, he does 2 years undergraduate and 4 years graduate school. So that would be 6 years. And during that time, they do formation, they take classes. We teach them how to pray, we teach them how to serve and minister and preach and do all those things during the process.
Our third question for Father Burr was, what special powers does a priest receive at ordination?
Well, power, I mean, what the bishop is doing is sealing a priest in a different way, using oil on his hands so that he acts on behalf of the bishop. But the Holy Spirit's powerful in our lives, and we feel the effects through all the sacraments.
Here are a few photos of people being ordained into priesthood. Our fourth question for Father Burr was, is the hierarchy of the Catholic Church based on holy orders?
That's a interesting question. Uh, is it based on it? No. Is it supported by it? Yes. You know, and so the hierarchy of the church exists because Jesus names his leader Peter and the others that are close to him with the apostles, and we've continued with that working model. And so the Pope now is the one that stands in the place of St. Peter. And those that are close to him, the cardinals and bishops, act as the apostles of the world. And then priests, really, we become participants within the acts of the apostles, right? That they continue to act as those leaders and guides to know Christ on earth, and we assist them in that work, really. And so we're all connected in that way, and the church continues to be led as Christ then put it in motion. And so that's why we have that hierarchical system.
Our fifth question for Father Stephen Burr was, can you explain the 3 degrees of holy orders?
3 degrees of holy orders. So we talk about deacon, priest, and bishop. Well, when a man is ordained a priest, before he's ordained a priest, he's ordained a transitional deacon. And so he becomes a transitional deacon to learn how to serve and to begin the work of holy orders and to do some of the work of the altar, serve the altar. And then he becomes a priest and continues his work within the church as a priest to bring the sacraments, like I mentioned before. And then bishops become that fullness of priesthood because it's like an apostle, like we just talked bishop stands then in the place of one of those apostles that was with Christ. There are also permanent deacons that are men that were named to serve always at the altar and to serve the poor. That's their primary ministry, as the church says, that it takes the gifts from the altar and brings them to all the poor in their local area, their church. And so with those three pieces, that deacon, priest, and bishop, you have leadership in bishop, you have service in priest, and then you have outreach in deacon.
For our sixth and final question, we asked Father Burr on what his experience of being ordained was like.
Well, it was actually it was very interesting. The year that I was ordained, I don't know if any of you or your classmates saw the movie Spotlight, the movie where it talks about the scandal that was in the church. Um, that was the year I was ordained, and so there was a lot of interesting things going on in the world at that time. And the time of ordination, we were also ordained not in the cathedral, because the cathedral here in Detroit was having renovations done, so we were ordained at a local parish in Bloomfield. And it was a beautiful day, and it was a beautiful moment. My family was there, and other priests that I knew, and my classmates. And it was a wonderful experience where I got to say to God, "This is how I'm going to live my life forever to you." And kind of like a young man may say that to a woman, like he's going to live for her and love her. That as we do that as priests with the Lord, and to say, "I'm going to serve on behalf of you for your bride, the church." So it was a beautiful day. It's hard to put into words, to be honest, because it was beautiful. It was great. I loved it. The Lord, there are times in our life, hopefully, that if we are willing to experience God and talk to God in our life, pray, that we'll know the moments that He's really loving us. And that was definitely one of